My name is David Klein, co-founder and CEO of Click Therapeutics. And first of all, thanks to Stan and HITLAB for having me. It's always great to attend these New York events. As many of you may agree, New York is the best city in the world, and it's great to see a thriving digital health community here. So thanks for having me. My name is David Klein, as I said, and we founded a company. I'm co-founder of Click Therapeutics, founded about 10 years ago. And we're really focused on discovering, developing, and commercializing prescription digital therapeutics. So really apps, clinically validated, and ultimately securing regulatory approval with really call it drug-like outcomes, but for an app. And we think that really the time is now for this space. We feel like we're about to, and pretty much on the cusp of a revolution in medicine. And I think, one of the things that excite me and why I'm excited to be here is because we believe what we're doing and what others in the ecosystem are doing are about to really enter everyday life. So, I think that we've heard a lot today about new technologies and new formats of delivering medicines, and those are extremely exciting. And I believe will, have its time at some point as well. But I think that in the next few years, when people, you or me may know, friends or family, they're going to be going into physicians' offices, and that physician, they may have, let's say, high blood pressure. And that physician may say, well, hey, I'm going to prescribe a medication, but also a FDA-approved app. It's been helping a lot of my other patients. Some of the patients even get off the medicine, right? And I think we're really on the cusp of that happening, and it's a truly exciting time to be in this space. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you're in a room full of people that would agree with you on that statement for sure. And tell us a little bit about your journey as well. Your journey is a very interesting one, from kind of where you started as a grad student or whatever to your first job out of grad school, and then where you are today and how you got to the point where you were like, you know what, I think I want to start a digital therapeutics company.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Just to correct you there, I didn't go to grad school.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have programs.
That's why I call you all the time.
Yeah.
But,
we'll if someone could send them some applications for Columbia.
Humble college graduate. I actually started a company out of college, and I ended up selling those contracts. It was an executive search firm, actually, focused on biotech recruiting. And then from there, I went to work for a, call it hedge fund, kind of merchant banking type group, where I was focused on investing in biotech companies and really biotech company formation. And from there, I would play, not only help invest in these companies, but I'd also play kind of interim operational roles within those companies. And in 2012, met a fellow who at the time was head of clinical neuropsychiatry from Cornell. And we really saw this pretty significant retreat from pharma out of the CNS space. These outcomes are kind of notoriously difficult to hit, or call it, can be subjective, right? It's not like shrinking a tumor in oncology, which is a pretty objective outcome. And at the same time, this kind of massive rise in mobile phones. I mean, everyone seemed to be using these smartphones, and the phone was clearly changing people's behavior, and we believed also, helping to rewire people's brains in certain ways. So we thought, well, if we could kind of focus and develop specific software in a biotech-like way, and really run randomized controlled trials to prove that they can treat specific diseases, that could be, as big or bigger than some drugs, or it could be combined with drugs for a safer and more efficacious treatment. And we created first a term called digital therapeutics, and then a company called Click Therapeutics. And fast forward to today, it's 2023. It's been a journey, but we have a long way to go. We've got about, I'd say, 150 people, mostly based in downtown Manhattan. Not that I have a preference between uptown or downtown, but and then we have a kind of satellite office in Boston and one in Miami. And we also have some people now working out of Asia and Europe on some global things that we're doing. So.
It's fantastic. What a great journey, and it's it certainly is amazing to see the eminence of digital therapeutics come to pass. Obviously, we've seen some ups and downs in digital therapeutics. Talk a little bit about your company's strategy with digital therapeutics and maybe some of the news around paratherapeutics and things like that.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So I think, you've seen kind of early entrance into this space. Some have been successful, some haven't. I would say that there's a new category kind of emerging. Let's almost call it prescription digital therapeutics 2.0. And you've had companies that have really entered this space, and I would encourage anyone who's thinking about this space to think about, actual clinical outcomes and proving them in kind of drug-like ways. I think often people have thought, simply getting a 510K or a medical device clearance would be enough to then commercialize something to what I would argue are the smartest people in the room, to physicians and payers and so on. So Click, unlike a lot of companies out there, are really focused on running randomized controlled trials on our programs and generating an evidence base that's frankly as strong or in some cases stronger evidence base than a typical pharmacotherapy would have. So that's the real, I think, difference in the space. And Click's not the only one out there doing it, but it is far and few between. On the companies that are really running, call it bona fide randomized controlled trials, and trying or showing that they're driving drug-like outcomes, I think that those companies will be not only successful, but have a real chance to change the world of medicine. As I was saying, I think we're really on the cusp of these programs being prescribed and entering into standard of care. It'll take some time, but I do feel like it's going to happen and happen relatively soon.
And the paratherapeutics recently had an auction for some of their intellectual property and things like that. Did you guys take any interest in any of that?
Yeah, so we actually acquired a number of their issued patents. Again, we weren't particularly interested in kind of the other things that they had, but we did acquire some of their patents, which we found interesting, and we feel bolsters our overall patent portfolio. Again, there's a pretty significant distinguishment between a pair and us. Pair's focus was really on commercializing a program called Reset-O, which they actually never ran a randomized controlled trial on that app. And again, I think I would encourage everyone to understand that regulatory clearance isn't the end-all be-all. That people really, if you want to commercialize something in the same form as one would commercialize a drug, so physicians to prescribe, payers to reimburse, it just has to have the right evidence base. So there's big differences, and I'm not saying one way is necessarily the right way, but we're doing really well so far, but we have ways to go.
That's great. Also very humble. We like that too. That's fantastic to hear. And certainly looking at the category that you're in this prescription digital therapeutic 2.0, describe more about what your vision is, what you're seeing unfold there over the next 5 years across healthcare in the U.S.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, our company itself, and I can talk about some other companies, we currently have a program for migraine actually in a pivotal study, so about a 550-person randomized controlled trial where we're aiming to show that we can reduce monthly migraine days. We also have a registrational trial ongoing on a program for negative symptoms in schizophrenia. And that's partnered with a company called Boehringer Ingelheim out of Germany, and that's also in a registrational trial. So, you can imagine that in the biotech world, let's say, to have 2 programs in registrational trials would be a huge feat, and we're extremely excited about that. We also actually completed a registrational trial on a program in major depressive disorder that we're extremely excited about. And that was completed right at the end of last year.
That's impressive, and that's just in the U.S., and I know that you guys are doing some phenomenal work globally in some other countries. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing there?
Sure, I can give kind of broad strokes. I can't get into too many details as people who might know us, or if you don't. Uh, we have 3 partnered programs currently with different pharma companies, 2 in schizophrenia and then 1 in major depressive disorder. Those partnerships, as publicly announced, are global in nature. And one of the exciting things about digital therapeutics, so about apps as treatments, as a lot of those kind of export barriers, I mean, they're certainly there, right? But they're not as rigorous as you'd see, or there's not as many barriers as you see with a typical kind of hardware device or a molecule of some sort. So we are and do view ourselves as a truly global company, and that's one of the very exciting things about this space. I mean, not only do we see patients getting more effective treatments and providers being able to provide more effective treatments and ultimately helping to save the system money, but it could be, and I think if I were to measure my success in the future, I would want to see what we're doing as one of the great equalizers in healthcare. I mean, ultimately, an app, let's say, to treat migraine, could get anywhere in the world. And there's, countries that don't have, they don't have the types of access to medications we have. There's even many places in America and many people, whether it be inner cities or rural areas, where a lot of these disorders either may be stigmatized, or they simply may not have access to the right psychiatrists or psychologists or neurologists, or even in some cases, primary care physicians. So what we're doing is proving that the phone can be medicine and proving that it can treat certain diseases. And ultimately, the real promise of this space is that someone could potentially get access and treatment privately and really in the comfort of their own home. So
That's fantastic. So you're right now, obviously the HITLAB community, not only here today at Columbia University, but around the world that are watching this, want to help you. I mean, everyone is driven by the optimal adoption of these technologies in medicine and healthcare to help patients around the world. What can people that are listening and are watching do to help Click Therapeutics and help you on your mission?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for anyone who wants to connect with me, you could look me up on LinkedIn or send me an email at david@clicktherapeutics.com. I'd say, if you want to create medicine, run randomized controlled trials and prove it's medicine. But it's not just advice, but I think it's beneficial to the space. I would just say, choose that kind of commercial lane wisely and based on the evidence that you're generating, and that not only will help, I think, everyone, but it will help me if kind of more people did that, right? If companies and your products, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs here. If what you're doing is, let's say, running an open label trial or something of that nature, then there's a specific way to commercialize programs like that. And I think that if we all really focused on evidence generation and what type of evidence kind of gets into what pathways, I think that that would really help delineate this space in a way that's beneficial for everyone. But yeah, I mean, we're also hiring. So if anyone wants to check our website out and look at open roles, feel free. If anyone wants to just talk or give me advice or get advice, feel free. I'm always happy to help the New York community here, or to frankly get helped by the New York community. So feel free.
And we have a lot of students here as well attending. What recommendations, what advice would you give students who are either in high school or college or even grad school and are looking for a career where they can not only help patients around the world, but also make a good living and are looking at digital health as an option for that? What would you tell them about exploring a career in this area?
Yeah, and another good question. Thanks for asking that, Stan. I mean, look, to be kind of blunt, I'd probably focus on kind of a STEM discipline, and I'd be looking at AI as something that's very important. We've been utilizing AI for years, for example, in our technologies. Actually, all of our programs utilize AI to help treat patients. And I think, as you see, there's a real exciting revolution where that could be easier and easier to deploy. The days of machine learning engineers at Click, kind of developing everything ourselves, maybe kind of coming, I wouldn't say to an end, but you may be looking for more experts at utilizing AI than experts at kind of developing it from scratch. So, I would focus on things like, in my view, software engineering, machine learning, other forms of AI. I think that that's a really exciting area. But, generally, I think networking is critical. So I would always remind people that often people who you meet in college or grad school or wherever you're going can be as important or as critical to the experience as your actual GPA. So I would just really encourage people to network. The people in this room, for example, could end up being your next colleagues or your next investors or your next partners. And I would just have a real focus on networking while you're in school. So
That's great. Well, thank you. We know how busy you are, and we know it's really tough to get all the way uptown here from where you are downtown. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you, David Klein.
thank you.